It's 3 o'clock, so we'll get started. I just wanted to welcome Dr. Breanna Guan. She is a naturopathic doctor. Where are you located? You're in Washington, right?
My practice is Boston-based, but I serve people in Washington and mostly Boston remotely. So I have a remote-based practice for women's hormones.
Excellent. Yeah, we're really excited to invite you to have the conversation about women's health and why women need testosterone. So I'm going to highlight you and Dr. Saeid so you can share all your wisdom with us. And thank you so much for everyone who has joined to participate today. Okay, we'll just get started here. And I'll let Dr. Saeid, you can introduce yourselves too.
Yeah, thanks so much for everyone for coming. We definitely I want to thank Maria for organizing these. It's been a great community event to come in and ask questions and see what individual experiences are with our product. We have a special guest today, and we're hoping we would have more expert advice on different topics. Today we have Dr. Breanna Guan, who's a naturopathic doctor whose focus is on women's hormones. So I think it's really appropriate with the topic of our product. So I'd like to welcome you, Dr. Guan, and really I'm going to give the floor to you to tell us, maybe start by telling us a little bit about your background, how you got into this focus in naturopathic medicine, because I know as a naturopath you can go all over the map, and then we'll go into the specific topic of testosterone, and then there will be time for question and answers at the end from everyone that's here.
Great. Well, I'm so excited that you guys have these community conversations. I think it's so important to be connecting this way. So I really appreciate the opportunity to come connect with you all. So like Dr. Saeid said, I am a naturopathic doctor, and I started out my career more in the line of prevention and oncology. I fell in love with preventive medicine when, seeing cancer patients, and found it really fulfilling. And then I became a mother, and then, through that process, I thought the menstrual cycle and the birth process and all of these things were so amazing. And it was just, I thought women's health was so important and so underappreciated and, so mystical still too, like not a lot of thought given to all of these intricacies and just the beauty that creating life was. And so I transitioned to women's hormones and fertility, and that has how my practice has evolved. And so I've had that focus now for 8 years, and had my own private practice, working with women through menstrual issues, perimenopause, fertility concerns. And I find that there are so many natural ways to support women's hormones that they can use to benefit their health versus just suppressing symptoms or, being written off that things just are the way they are and you have to deal with it. And so I love to see my clients feeling at their best and overcoming those obstacles.
Awesome. What kind of so tell us a little bit about your practice. You say that you have an online practice, and you do have a program as well. So tell us a little bit about that.
I have an online practice. We went online with the pandemic and then just ended up staying online, and it's worked really well because people don't have to commute into the city or find a babysitter, or they can meet from their homes or office places. So I do have a program called the Into Balance program, where we go on a journey to help people transition through, from point A to B with support. So a stepwise approach to helping them get their desired outcomes. And so women with hormone imbalances or fertility concerns can use that program. And then I also see people, more a la carte or that traditional medical model. My practice is focused around using testing and identifying the root causes of issues, helping women understand more about their bodies and their hormone imbalances, and then using lifestyle changes, botanical medicine, supplements, and food as medicine to support them back into a place of balance, creating lifestyle changes that they can sustain and utilize, so they become their own best practitioner.
Going back to the principle of docere, doctors as teachers, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So when it comes to the root causes of hormone imbalances, what do you find the most common things are culprits?
Yeah, I think, often with hormone imbalances, we think of our bodies as failing us. And I think of hormone imbalances as states where our hormones are adjusting to the environment that they're present in. And so if you're under high levels of stress, you're going to have high cortisol. So it's not necessarily a hormone imbalance, but it's an appropriate response to stressors present. And so our hormones tell us a lot about the environment that we're encountering around us and also our internal environment. So what are our thoughts? What is our gut microbiome like, or internal situation of our bodies, our blood sugar balances. And so the hormones are really good at reflecting and telling to us what's going on. And some of the most common things that I see for, imbalances in hormones have to do with modern lifestyles and chemical exposures. And dietary lifestyle things. I think there's somewhat of a mismatch between what's great for our genetics, what's great for our well-being, and the environment that we live in. So it's really possible and easy for me to not get in like 5,000 steps in my day. I could, very easily accomplish that. And it's going to take more effort for me to go out and get movement. I have to work hard to get movement. Whereas in the past, I don't think that was the case. And I think that's a genetic mismatch. I think my body benefits from movement. So I have to go against my environment quite often to create health. And so I think those are the challenges that most of us are up against, is this mismatch between what our bodies benefit from and our environments. And that's the same for food and sleep and light exposure.
Yeah, that's so true. It's when it comes to the basics of it, no man is an island to himself. That's the idea. That's the environment, which is typically the psychological environment or the societal environment that we live in, dictates certain lifestyles over others. And pretty much all lifestyles that are dictated by the 9 to 5 schedule of life is conducive to long-term disease. And the sleep cycle, you said, is really important. The environmental toxins. Tell us about let's talk about environmental aspects of hormone health, because there's a lot of sources of xenoestrogens. That's one of the main things that's going to drive down testosterone.
Absolutely. Yeah, we see estrogen mimicking chemicals throughout our environment, and you have to, again, go against the grain to avoid those things. So things that mimic estrogen will block testosterone receptors or estrogen receptors, or upregulate estrogen levels, just can create a whole slew of issues for our hormone balance, especially in men. And so chemicals can be found in our water. Just without a water filter, we're putting ourselves at risk of, chemicals and pharmaceuticals in our water. A lot of food packaging has plastics. And then I think one of the bigger exposures for women has to do with personal care products, fragrances, lotions, makeups, cosmetics, hairsprays, all of these sorts of body chemicals that are getting in such close contact with our skin and, fat soluble, absorbing right through these barriers that we have. The birth control pill is another xenoestrogen that we're, voluntarily adding to our lives. So they're just abundant
Mhm.
for
You
women.
mentioned sleep. You mentioned movement. You
Mhm.
mentioned xenoestrogens, or in general, like chemicals,
Mhm.
disruptors. Um, what else? What else is part of this hormone regulation
Yeah.
foundation?
Yeah. Another really big one, I think, is muscle mass and metabolic health with food. And so as our muscle mass declines, we have a loss of testosterone and imbalances in hormones, metabolic hormones like insulin. And so I see that as a really big issue for women, just maintaining muscle mass, and, ideal fitness, and metabolic health is a really big issue too.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, what about aging?
Right. Yeah.
It's because that's that's a in a way an unwanted stress that everyone is going to face,
Mhm.
including ourselves, right?
Yeah.
I felt it as soon as I turned the 40s, and now I'm hitting my 50s, and I'm feeling another chapter being shaved off. Um, it's definitely a challenge of its own.
Right. Yeah, with aging, you definitely have those hormone changes. And I see that too with, postpartum mothers having drops in hormones and disruptions. So their DHEA levels or estrogen or testosterone levels can be lower postpartum. And then with the aging, you see this certain picture of low DHEA, low estrogen, low testosterone, progesterone, et cetera. But I see that even in younger women in their 20s and 30s who have high stress exposure for longer periods of time. I'm like, your levels are that of a 60-year-old, So I think aging is absolutely so relevant and a time where we really have to make adjustments. And then younger people are needing to make the same adjustments too. It's really fascinating.
What are some of your favorite testing methods?
Mhm. My favorite hormone test is the Dutch test. I use the Dutch Complete on almost all of my clients. That is a urinary test that looks at hormone levels and their metabolites. So I get a really good picture of adrenal hormone output, so cortisol levels, DHEA levels. I see how DHEA gets converted into testosterone and DHT. I get to see how the body metabolizes estrogen, which I think is so underappreciated in modern medicine. Because you can have an okay level of estrogen, but if you don't detoxify it well, it can cause issues for you. So I think that's a bigger risk factor for women that, um, by looking at that and managing it, you could really do a lot for prevention.
Hmm. Going back to the environmental burden and your liver's ability to detoxify
Yeah, absolutely.
and
Hmm.
balance those estrogens.
Yeah.
Um, what else? What else can you tell us?
Hmm. Yeah, for with this talk on testosterone, I think that testosterone is underappreciated for women, right? We think of testosterone and it's male, how it benefits men, right? And it's a male hormone, but I think women are suffering when they don't have sufficient testosterone levels, and often it's people are not attributing low testosterone symptoms to women. It's always estrogen is the big, problem maker. But if a woman's testosterone levels are low, it can mimic that of a high a high estrogen state. And so women really need that to, for so many reasons. I think it's so important. It's a it's a vital hormone for women too.
Yeah, and only so little of it. Like the typical, in contrast to the Dutch test that you mentioned, the typical blood sample that's you would take on hormones
Mhm.
has such a limited range for testosterone for women, and it doesn't even have a range. It has, it needs to be below this or above that.
Right.
It's a single point, and the range is huge, like
Mhm.
of between different women in different stages.
Mhm.
So how do you compensate for that little bit of a drop? So um, the first thing is understanding what's going on, and then the next step is treating it. But there are certain principles, certain simple things that can help that testosterone, right?
Mhm.
Uh, what is your experience with that, with women and low testosterone? What are the symptoms they get, and how do you help them?
Yeah, at an early stage, I find that women feel like they kind of lack this gusto or this sparkle. They feel somewhat dimmed, like they don't have this sense of well-being or brightness that maybe they had in their 20s and 30s. It's like the lights are, just not as sparkly for her. And then maybe that might progress to a state of depression, or like, don't want to do things that she used to want to do, maybe has a hard time getting out and, going to the gym or doing activities. And then you can see, physical changes starting to happen too. So that might be something like osteopenia, osteoporosis, skin issues like more sagging skin, or loss of muscle mass is a really is one that she might notice too. So those are the major um, symptoms that I notice in my practice.
Yeah, the weight changes, the BMI changes, right?
Right,
And
weight gain.
lack of
Yes.
spark in your step. Um,
Hmm.
that's uh, that's what I see too. That's initially the first thing. And that's earlier, before, that's premenopause. That's and perimenopause, and even before that. That's more like in 30s and 40s, when I was saying I turned the page. It's the same experience, but it's often not attributed to testosterone. Uh,
Right, right.
it's, it gets missed on that front. Um, and then later on, what are the symptoms that you notice?
Hmm. Yeah, I think you start to see that loss of muscle mass and depression or weight gain as those, and the lack of motivation and drive are those main things. But depression is a really big one that I think needs to be highlighted more. I think a lot of women can suffer from depression, and it's pretty serious. And so you just get an SSRI, or an antidepressant of some sort, and that doesn't address the hormonal situation that's happening, or the low hormone levels. And it doesn't resolve things. So it's
Yeah,
very, it's not very satisfying.
the depression is a big one now. Like, I see a lot more in my practice of the mind state. And nowadays, if I see anyone coming with depression or even anxiety for men, I
Mhm.
always test for testosterone. That's the number one thing, because you
Yes.
could be doing anything and everything, but if
Mhm.
that spark is not there, you can
Mhm.
fuel and throw all the nutrients into the system. What is
Mhm.
the catalyst to make it move?
Mhm.
Um,
Libido is another one too. That's a big one for women, the loss of libido.
yeah, yeah. Um, so I'm just checking out some of the questions here, on on the chat.
Mhm.
How can pine pollen support women's hormone levels? That's to the point, but I thought I would bring that up first.
Yeah, yeah, I am new to the phytoandrogens. You guys introduced that to me, so I feel kind of a beginner in this stage, but it makes complete sense to me that, in nature we find phytoestrogens, these plant estrogens, so of course there would be phytoandrogens. And so I think that's so fascinating that there are these compounds that can interact with our or androgenic receptors and support hormone production like DHEA and testosterone. So yeah, a little bit of support in those areas can go a long way. But I'd love to have you speak to that. I'd love to hear your response.
Well, it comes down to the phytoandrogen component, right? Like the same way that's the estrogen has been the focus for the longest time because it's such a big thing. Like when you look at the levels of the hormones in a female panel, you got the estrogen is the dominant hormone. You know, the testosterone is just a footnote, but that footnote is a big footnote. It's in terms of amount, comparison amount. So the focus has been the estrogen. There's been some focus on progesterone. I think progesterone for men is getting neglected. You know, testosterone is more in the focus, but progesterone is getting neglected, which is really important as well for men. Same as you, I was a beginner to this a few years ago when I found out about it. You know, up until that point, I always did the basics. Get your exercise, movement, keeping. That's going to boost testosterone. Get your sleep. If you're not sleeping, how are you making testosterone? Vitamin D was always a big one. You know, vitamin D is all. Like now, when I test, I always test vitamin D along testosterone because it's, you know, you can have one that's normal if the other one is off. Then you still have the same or similar problems. And then it was herbs, Chinese herbs or botanicals that boosted testosterone. But they boosted testosterone, which means that, you know, you can speak to this. If you boost a hormone for any period of time, your body is gonna like do the opposite of that. You're gonna get a crash. In Chinese medicine, they call it the yang. You support the yang hormone. So when I came along pine pollen, that was, you know, that was in a way kind of a godsend in the materia medica, which there was a gap for it. So it's been an educational process for me with working with all the other individuals and naturopaths, and for us as a whole, as a company, to educate people. I was curious because you took a sample with it from us, right? Like we gave you a sample. Did you try those?
Yes,
for yourself or for your patients, or?
I have a personal sample and I'm trying to be more regular with it. We, you know, just got back from holiday and stuff like that. So it's new to my regimen and I'm always slow to incorporate things, but I'm, you know, I tasted it and it tastes good. I'm so excited that there is an androgenic compound that I can incorporate. My mind is blown by that. And so I think I told you at the conference, I'm really excited to use it around my workouts because you know, as a female who is, you know, approaching 40, I know that muscle mass is, you know, money in the bank for me moving forward. And so I want to nurture and support myself to be strong. So I have good bones, you know, in the future. So yeah, I'm really excited to, you know, have this new awareness. It's like I've entered a next level and I'm excited to get to use it more.
So we got another question from Yvonne. Do you find castor oil packs to be a good way to regulate hormones and support liver health?
I think castor oil is always amazing at doing whatever it does. It's like that thing that you always hear these wonder stories about, you know, castor oil, I put it on this and it healed my XYZ or whatever. But I think, you know, for inflammation and using it for liver detoxification, that's a really gentle tool and good for regularity. So I think that's a nice thing that you can do for yourself, self-care, you know, one of those practices.
Yeah, it's one of those self-care practices for the liver and detoxification. Is it specific for hormone? Like if someone has detoxification problems, it might be a specific solution or part of the plan. So it can be useful that way. another question is, this is from Jody, what natural solutions do you offer to your patients? What are your, if you were to boil it down to, let's say, a handful of things that you would tell your patients for
Yeah.
regulating their hormones and testosterone.
Yeah, so my top things would be to ensure you're getting good dietary protein. Most of the women that I work with don't get enough dietary protein. So that is a game changer for stabilizing blood sugar and maintaining muscle mass. I would recommend being active every day, specifically, weight-bearing exercises. Again, having good muscle mass supports testosterone, like you said, and so that's really of high importance. I'd recommend having a dark environment for sleep, getting 8+ hours of sleep, and then having a lot of light exposure during the day as top practices. And then the other thing is getting really aware of your nervous system tone, so we can be in that fight or flight or high tone sort of nervous system state. It's easy to hang out there. We could be asleep or really tired as another nervous system state. Too relaxed is not a good place, but learning how to regulate your nervous system through breath work, I think is one of the most important things that we can do in our modern era, is to lower that, high vibration, high stress, high cortisol state, and moving into this parasympathetic relaxed state. So those would be my top recommendations for supporting women's hormones. So when you're relaxed, you feel safe. And so your body can heal, it can absorb, it can adapt, versus, fighting or flying away from those things.
It's really interesting that you mentioned that. Just even like the mentioning of, calming the nervous system, and the space that allows you to permit yourself to check in with your nervous system.
Yeah.
For me, when you said that, I checked in and I was able to bring it a notch down for myself. It's so being aware of that nervous system on an ongoing basis, right? What is it? What are the triggers? Do you? John is asking if you take new patients in Colorado, and in particular menopausal patients.
I do work with clients, throughout the world or wherever they're located, in a client relationship for menopause or perimenopause. Yes.
What is your take on how can they get in touch with you?
A great way to start would be go to my website and schedule a 15-minute introductory call to see, how we might work together. Is it a great fit? I'd love to hear about what you're, experiencing or up against, and see if I might be able to help. I love to connect that way before, scheduling something or. Yeah.
Cool. Thank
I've
you.
also posted her website in the chat, and I'll post it again.
Beautiful. What are your thoughts on whether, like, when it comes to botanicals, whether to take a botanical versus a tincture?
Mm-hmm. You mean like an herbal capsule, or what's the best method of?
Yeah, herbal capsule, herbal powder versus an extract. What are some of the cons and pros for you?
Yeah, for me, I think capsules are very convenient. And so if you wanted to, throw them in your gym bag or have them, wherever, it can be easier to use a capsule. I think capsules can also be rather mindless and decrease that relationship or exchange with the product that you're using. And so I think an extract is a great way to build a relationship with the substance that you're using, because you have to taste it and it's a more sensory experience. And so, like the difference between a banana and a lemon, like, the difference, right? They have very different properties and, personalities, if you will. Whereas if you just take a capsule of an herb, you don't have a lot of relationship with it or understanding of what it's like. But when you use it as an extract, you can taste it. You might know if it's astringent or it's very rooty or it's, so I think there's more of an exchange with that process. And so I would say that's the biggest difference is just you have to slow down and you get a little more sensory experience with it versus, just taking it. And I think you can have a more dynamic experience when you slow down and taste something or are more, I think that imprinting is a little bit deeper.
Yeah, the energetics of the herb is that sensory experience. We can go a lot deeper and get into the plant spirit side of things. And what are your thoughts on like, do you think encapsulation takes away from the energetics of the herb? Do you think that plays a role, or are you more on the side of like the dose makes the medicine?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I don't know. I think that you can get really like, a lot of capsules, they are standardized to certain chemical extracts for constituents that you want that have benefits. And I will take curcumin from time to time for like a pain or something. And I know that that would probably get me a lot more results than, a turmeric extract, at least in my experience. And so I think it depends on the person and their intentions. And I would say all the herbs are a little bit different in what they're doing. Someone might need to slow down and have more relationship with that, substance. Maybe we all do. I don't know. What do you think? I'm interested to hear what you have to say.
Well, a great part of my practice is homeopathy. So energetics of, everything is part of what I like. Going through school, I was classically drawn to tinctures. I didn't want to use any encapsulations because of the steps of the processing that went into it.
Yeah.
As biological beings, we are water based, and water dictates the energy of where we are, and every biological activity is happening in water. So when you temper with a botanical and you extract it and then you dehydrate it, take the water away, and then you mix it up with a bunch of other ingredients and you put it in a capsule, you've deprived a lot. Like, it's still that molecule is going to interact with the water molecules that's in your body, and it's going to shape and form and dictate the outcomes of the physiological reactions. But if you're being true to the form, I think tinctures have stood the test of time the longest. Having said that, when you don't standardize, there's a lot of things that can go wrong. I mean, standardization is one of the key things in the idea of delivering and doing tests, because a tincture from A batch can be a different tincture than a B batch, depending on who made it, how they made it, what steps they followed, and did they extract the same amount of ingredients out of it or not, becomes a big question. So it's a toss-up. Like I like the energetics. I've done some plant spirit medicine work. I know there is something beyond the molecule, but the molecule, we live in the world of molecules, and the molecules are delivery messages. So a high potency curcumin definitely is going to stand the trial of human trials and testing, and it works. And I would go for that in terms of, like you said, if I want something for inflammation, or if I want to anti-parasitic, I would never tackle that with an energetic medicine. But I'm also conscious of energy in dealing with things, because ultimately everything is energy. Even that stress, that the cortisol response you're talking, that like bringing our nervous system energy down a notch, that is purely energy. Like, why do memories get us into different emotional states? Right. Or even like when it comes to pine pollen, how is it that for millennia pines have been regarded as sources of longevity? Like it's in it's in the language Latin as well. Like the pinus, the Pinaceae family, like the correlation with that male component and the rooted in the language and the understanding. So where did that come from? Like Latin words for a lot of plants are interesting because the other day I was doing a homeopathic case and I came up around the Hyacinthum neglectum, and it's a plant that's used for depression. It's a lily, and the lily has this feeling of like being forced out and excluded, and it gets so like where did that come from? How did that name came to that energetic? How did that verbal connection come to being? Right. Am I getting sidetracked here? We're talking about testosterone.
No, it's really awesome.
and pine pollen and how I mean and cortisol bringing the stress level and then the energetics and the emotion of how do we manage that. So
I was thinking today, we often like learn something new and then it's like, no, this is the new thing, this is the new way, all that other stuff it doesn't matter. It's all about this. And I think it's so easy to get excited about these various layers, and it takes such big arms and capacity to hold like, yes, it is this, and it is this also. It's all of it, it's so complex. We try to understand all these things, and it's hard for us to wrap our brains around it all, I think.
Talking about getting excited, what is exciting for you in the hormone world right now?
Yeah, well, I've been looking at endocrine disruption a lot this month in my practice, and I was looking at imprinting. Imprinting is where, in utero or shortly thereafter, you get exposure to certain substances. And for hormones, the male boys are being imprinted and how their HPA or their hormonal axes function, like the first weeks of life. So if they had chemical exposures during that time, it could change their future fertility. And so I think, we're probably seeing the results of that today with declining fertility rates. For men especially, this could be a result of what moms and grandmas had exposure to. And so I think it's really exciting to have people waking up to these, things. So I think that's really fascinating.
Yeah, that little bit of chemical exposure during development, how it can actually prime you for different, because they're finding that boys are lower in testosterone in general, right, compared to what decades before were.
Lower sperm counts, lower testosterone levels.
Jody says that she's got a product that she would love to share with us that you're talking about age and tired and inflammation, something that's good for tired and inflammation. Jody.
Hi, yes, I do. And Mary Cromer is on, and Heidi and Renita, and Burgess just joined in with this product as well. But it's age reversal. It's LifeWave company. The product is called X39, and it's a stem cell reactivation patch. David Schmidt is the owner, the inventor of the product. And so how it works is it works phototherapy, just like getting the sun, getting vitamin D from the sun. It's a simple patch that you wear 12 hours a day. You put it on in the morning when you get up, and when you go to bed, you take it off. And so how it works is your body emits light, your body emits heat and energy. And so there's nothing in the patch. It's non-transdermal, no drugs, no chemicals. And it causes your body to elevate copper peptide, which then reactivates your own stem cells. And so we need stem cells to heal our bodies of all things.
Interesting.
We have seen thousands of amazing testimonies and results. Renita is on. I'd like her to hop on and help me out a little bit with the explanation. I think she's on.
And 1 minute. It's also a good idea for you to mention, you had a question for Saeid previously as well when we were talking on the phone a little bit about hormonal stuff. So yeah, might be a good idea to ask about that as well.
What did
Jody, I just love everything I'm hearing on this whole webinar since I hopped on. Thank you for all of your wisdom, everybody that's been on here. I'm excited to implement some of these solutions. I love it. Hormonal balance is crucial, I think, in this day and age, especially I think something that is really hurting all of us is the invisible rainbow of the 5G, right? And so, which we all use every single day because we're on our devices and it's how we share the message. But I love what I'm hearing. I need to get involved with this product that Jody, she said, hop on and learn. And so I'm loving that. But yeah, I love LifeWave as well. I believe in multiple modalities to get well. And so I actually, Jody, thanks for sharing about the X39. I actually love the Eon patch because in 15 minutes, that'll pull the body back to the parasympathetic state. So for those people that are caught in that fight or flight mode, it's a nice tool in our health arsenal. I like to get away from medicine cabinet and move to health arsenal. That will really help the body to get back to that rest and repair state. And so I love everything I'm hearing for hormonal balance for women. I actually have a group with about 10,000 women in it, all strong moms. And so, yeah, excited to share some of these great solutions that you guys are talking about. So I appreciate everybody's wisdom tonight.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, you mentioned phototherapy. When we were at the A4M, there was phototherapy is one of the other kind of tech responses to the aging process, right? Breanna, you were at the A4M. What there were some technology there, right? Let's talk about technology, because technology and aging and testosterone. One of the things actually, in fact, and I'll share this afterwards. Maybe I'll just turn this question to you. In terms of technology that was out there, whether it was light therapy, whether it was other technology, what caught your eye about testosterone and anti-aging?
Yeah, testosterone and anti-aging. I think some of the talks, just really emphasizing the importance of, maintaining and supporting hormone levels for women. I think often, the message is you're fine and just, you don't have to do anything, where you see, just these huge increases in chronic disease. I didn't really do a lot with the technology because I do a virtual practice, so technology doesn't really have a lot for me. The only technology that I really use are continuous blood glucose monitors, because those are wearable devices that people can incorporate. And I found that those support a lot of dietary changes that are helpful for testosterone. Just lowering calories consumption and blood glucose can be really good for testosterone levels in women. So that is something I use, but I know there's so many red light therapies, and I'm and different light therapies and stuff, and I don't know anything about that stuff. So maybe you do.
For me, it came through a patient. I had a patient that I was treating. We have a red light therapy device in the clinic. One of my associates who was into it ahead of me, with body devices. I have spot devices that I've used always for concussion, red light and cold laser. But we had a body device at the clinic, and I was treating a patient for low testosterone. I tried a lot of things, and then he came back, and on one of his tests, his testosterone had gone up to 26. I mean, 28 is Canadian higher limit, right? So and I was, what I'd done for him, I think had shaved things. I'd moved things up by 2-3 points from 18 that he was noticing his low testosterone effect to 22.3. And then he came up with a high number. And I was like, what did you do? Because we haven't changed your protocol. You've been on this protocol for 6 months. I haven't been able to up you from this. And he said, I've done 15 minutes of phototherapy on my genitals. Every day. So phototherapy activates your protein synthesis, your endoplasmic reticulum.
Yes.
So with that, you can get a lot of movement in a lot of areas. So something for in favor of phototherapy. That's one of the things that definitely is a proven thing. Well, at least one patient proven thing, right? One patient proven thing, and ever since I have recommended it to other clients. There is some cost associated with it, and navigating through the equipment itself. Like at the A4M, there was at least 20 or 30 vendors that were doing light therapy.
Right.
So knowing which ones have clinical studies and which ones are for sure is going to take a little bit of research and digging in and finding out, okay, what's the background? What's the clinical studies that's been done? How big is that? What impact they see? What are they monitoring to know the impact? Those are some of the key things in navigating through new technology.
I would love to chime in because I agree about the cost. I have a $20,000 red light bed. I've got a $7,000 pain laser that is a 830 frequency. I've got an infrared sauna. I've had that for 25 years. But like the bottom line is like, I think that what Jody was talking about with that X39, that what I love about it is we're the plug-in. Like there's not a 110 or 220 volt that you have to plug into. We are the electrical source, right? And I love that because it's affordable. Just like you said, I mean, I have about 320 medical doctors that I work with, and they all say the same thing. Like people come to their clinics for integrative health, whether it's, homeopathy or naturopathy or phototherapy or whatever it is. And they said the common denominator is affordability. People can stick with things that are affordable, right? And that are really user friendly. And I think people live in such a fast-paced world that sometimes they don't take 30 minutes to lay in their red light bed or an hour to sit in their sauna. Whereas some of these phototherapy, like the patches, like Jody was talking about, that X39 that she shared, that patch is amazing because you just put it on and go. I mean, put it on when you brush your teeth, So that's a really cool technology with I think they have 90 clinical studies now and 180 patents, and the company's been around for about 20 years. So it's not a new thing, but phototherapy is like congruent, like with everything, with energy, right? Like we just went to the beach with our son who tore 4 of his knee ligaments. We came back and my kid is doing butt kicks and he's supposed to have an ACL surgery mid-February. And I said to my husband, I don't think he needs it. Like, I feel like his body is regenerating from the sun, great supplementation, all the things that you guys are kind of talking about here tonight. And just knowing the body's a built-in healer, right? We just got to do the right thing. So it's incredible, like all these great modalities of phototherapy that are coming down the pipeline. But affordability and research, I agree, is crucial.
Thank you, Anita. Jody, maybe you can share a link for that product with us on the chat, and we can read into it and look into it. Anyone that's interested will have access to. We have a question. I love the taste of glycerin so much more and find higher compliance. Alcohol base is definitely good in hot drinks. What are your thoughts versus glycerin-based tinctures? Are they as effective as alcohol-based?
Yeah, I think they're fine to use. That just a different. Yeah, I don't think there's any difference or any concern about using glycerin-based extraction methods. I know that people with more like history of substance disorder use can, safely use glycerin extracts. Glycerin is similar, I believe, in, extracting like high alcohol content, like the alcohol or fat soluble compounds, like the alcohol. So what do you think?
I like how you must have had some training in homeopathy, because it is a question coming back to the question, which is awesome. That's my technique. That's why, when I sit down with patients and, it's always a 2-hour process to take a case, or 2-3 hour process. And if I get a question in the middle, it's always like, what are your thoughts on that? Let's see what you do. It's glycerin is interesting. Glycerin, like alcohol, has been there all the time, right? Like I agree with you. It's there is really no distinction between the two in terms of like substances. It comes up to a preference. And it with anything, when you have options, there's always cons and pros, right? So with glycerin, definitely, like if you don't have an issue with alcohol, you can take the alcohol tincture. I think it absorbs better sublingually than glycerin. Glycerin is a bigger molecule. But glycerin performs better in some of the, in like plant enzymes, like the auxins and some of these bioactive compounds that have been traditionally extracted in glycerin in the chemotherapy world, where they go after the budding tissue of the plant, which pine pollen is like the spring budding tissue of the pine tree. So in chemotherapy, they go after that fresh plant base. And the idea is that the glycerin draws out some of the things that alcohol wouldn't, because auxins are not alcohol soluble. That's why we have adapted in our tinctures the glycerin alcohol based combination to get that side of the profile as well as the alcohol profile. And we want a dual extraction, but we are getting people that are not happy with the alcohol content. And our solution to that is to come up with a glycerin extract as well, for sure. Maybe I'll close with one last question, and then we'll turn it to Maria to see if there's anything else that we want to tackle. What are your top herbs for regulating testosterone?
Yeah, for supporting testosterone in women, I usually support DHEA hormone and adrenal hormones. And so I will use Eleutherococcus, which is Siberian ginseng. I will also use Panax ginseng. And then, for a lot of my clients, there's a PCOS sort of spectrum. And so I'm trying to balance testosterone and estrogen for a lot of women. So sometimes I'm trying to get rid of testosterone. That's not what you're asking. But peony and licorice can help to balance that testosterone and estrogen balance. So I like to use those. And then the DHT component, usually trying to block the DHT conversion for my clients. Saw palmetto, spearmint, stinging nettle root are some of the ones that I use. So those are the main ones that I use to address testosterone in my practice.
I should look into peony. I haven't used that in my years. It's amazing when it comes to the herbs. You got so many options. That's what do you do for peony? Is it a tincture? Like, how do you use it?
Yeah, I think it's a Chinese formula. It's licorice and peony, white peony.
Right. Yes.
It blocks that conversion of, it's an aromatase inhibitor. No, it supports aromatase. Sorry, it supports aromatase activity. So we're converting testosterone into estrogen, which some women don't do that very well. And so they'll have higher testosterone symptoms. So that's how I use it. And I use it as either a capsule or a what they call that, T-pills or
T-pills. Yeah, because you can pop it up, or you can actually reconstitute it in water, because that's the traditional decoction. So,
or a tincture. Yeah, so that's how I use that.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being with us here and sharing your knowledge. And we got a few more minutes on this meeting. You're welcome to stick around a little bit longer if you wanted, but maybe I'll ask for any last minute questions or anything else that you want us, any suggestions for us in terms of what to do for future, and any feedback.
I think I would just really encourage you guys. I think what you have is really exciting. And so I'm so excited to see you bring pine pollen to the forefront of, what this male or testosterone supportive medicine, I think, is so under recognized. So I'm just speak a word of encouragement to you guys in your efforts. Have you done anything on performance enhancement? That would be, athletic performance. That would be a cool topic to cover.
Yeah, we do have athletes taking it and using it within their I guess, before sporting events and whatnot. And most of them enjoy taking it on a regular. So I mean, yeah, as for I guess, professional athletes, yeah, I mean, we haven't been in contact with too many professional athletes that might be supplementing with our product, but definitely myself personally, still active playing hockey, and I got a lot of friends that, that I'm active playing hockey with that like to take it, and everybody notices that, they have a little bit more energy when they're doing it. People that are at the gym consistently using the weights and all that kind of stuff generally enjoy taking it. So, yeah.
I would
That's
think
definitely-
the opposite end of the spectrum of that too, like with metabolic disease, you really need that testosterone to build the muscle mass. So that would be so valuable for those folks to restore metabolic health. But I won't take too much more time. I know you guys.
Yeah, we should definitely schedule that as one of our meeting topics, performance enhancement, because there's things. It's amazing how an hour goes, right? Like there's so much more we can talk about testosterone, big or any other health topic, right? Especially if you turn it into like where the individual is in their cycle, because it's testosterone as a blanket means different things when you're 17 or when you're 70, and all the ages in between. It's or any other hormone for that matter, growth hormone, or when it comes to performance and the testosterone role in mitochondrial respiration, right? Like energy production. We can dive deep. It's an hour is not enough time for this, but we really hope that it's been a great for me. It's been a great learning experience. I'm going to dig into a couple of herbs for sure, which I haven't used in the past, and I hope it's been the same for all you. Thank you so much for being with us.
And again, Jody, do you have a question for Saeid? Regarding, there was a question before, I know we were mentioning on the phone.
Right. Yes. Jody, Burgess was mentioning that you were on a conversation with him and you had some questions about menopause in particular.
And maybe Breanna would be able to help out as well, just being, a female specialist herself. And if it's something you'd rather talk in confidentiality, I totally understand as well.
No, it's fine. So I had a hysterectomy at 48. I'm 59 now. And I had been using the bioidentical hormones, and I'm wanting to get off of all big pharma drugs. And so that's what led me to the pine pollen tincture. And trying to get off of the estrogen, I don't know. I realize that estrogen is important as we get older, but I want to know what I can use without getting, without using the pharmaceutical drugs, along with the tincture, or what other products I can get to support the estrogen, because I just don't know a lot about, am I still able to make estrogen even though I don't have ovaries anymore? What can you shed on that to add in? I have added in the DHEA and the pine pollen tincture, but what else do you have to offer in suggestions?
Okay, so good questions. There's a few good questions. Of course, we gotta. The one thing, Jody, is we gotta be cautious as doctors. To not give you any specific individual advice, because then that becomes a doctor-patient relationship, and we become responsible to follow up with you and find out how things go and continue on that. But you have really good questions there. Maybe I'll break it down, and maybe we can actually give you a better understanding of where you're at right now and what are some of the solutions you need to explore. So the first question I heard there was, am I still making hormones if I've had a hysterectomy and my ovaries out? So maybe I'll turn that to Dr. Breanna.
So if you don't have your ovaries, and as you go through perimenopause and menopause, those levels will go down. Your estrogen levels will go down because the ovaries are not present to make testosterone or estrogen, progesterone. But you still have your adrenal glands, and some other tissues make small amounts of estrogen as well. So you do have estrogen largely coming from adrenal sources at this point.
So yeah, you have some endogenous production, but compared to what your ovaries would have made, that level is not comparable. But you have enough to maintain your activities, and that's what the adrenals do after menopause naturally. And then the other question was, I'm on estrogen. What are your thoughts on bioidentical estrogen in general, in terms of what approaches you take for women that need replacement therapy? I know your hands are a little bit more free in US. We don't have access to DHEA for prescription here. If you're on DHEA, like that's in Canada, I wish I could prescribe DHEA and testosterone. I can. I have to use all sorts of herbal alternatives or refer to medical doctors. What are your thoughts on that? How, like, let's look at two questions. Like, estrogen, do you prefer it as a standalone? How long do you prefer it for? What other formulation you use? And let's tackle that first.
Yeah, I think that estrogen is very important for women's health. And I think there was a lot of scare about hormone replacement therapy in the past with the studies. And a lot of that, I think, was due to the route of administration. So we know that taking oral estrogen does increase risks more than a topical application. So route of administration is really important. Also, historically, they were using progestins in those studies, which don't equate the same benefits as progesterone, the bioidentical or natural source, or the type of progesterone. Progestins may have some risk factors that we saw with those negative results from studies in the past. But the American Menopausal Society has recently, started to soften their tone in terms of the safety and, the benefit of hormone replacement therapy. And I think that there is, benefit from maintaining a certain level of estrogen. Estrogen it helps support collagen production. And so if you think that, your brain is a collagenous organ, your heart is a collagenous organ, your bones are 50% collagen, your joints have a lot of collagen. And so we see Alzheimer's disease, heart disease, osteoporosis as all increasing, tremendously after a woman goes through menopause. Having estrogen around to support those tissues can be, really life-saving for a lot of women and reduce the risk of those diseases. And so I think that with the right dose, the right practitioner to support an individualized strategy is really important and can provide a lot of protection. Maintaining brain function is so important. Preventing lots of weight gain is really beneficial for a woman's mental health and vitality. And so I don't think there's a one size fits all, but I certainly think that you can reduce a lot of risk factors by maintaining a certain level of hormone for women and helping them to enjoy and age well. But not everyone has to take that approach.
Do you have a timeline that you tell your patients if they're on bioidentical hormones that like it's safe for this amount of time? Maybe we should transition you to herbs after this period of time, or do you think that it's an unlimited kind of like use this for the rest of your life solution?
Yeah, I think that it's probably unlimited for women to feel well and to have the benefits from it. I don't see there as like a time when you wouldn't want to have the benefits of estrogen, like all of a sudden it would just go away. You wouldn't want those benefits. But also, you know, when you think about longevity and those blue zones and people in Japan living to be 100 years old, they're not using hormone replacement therapy there. And so, you know, I would claim that I am not the expert on what is the best path forward, you know, and I think we need to keep examining it. I think the research is so limited, but I've definitely seen, you know, patients feeling like themselves again, you know, I mean, I've been, you know, postpartum, and even with a monthly cycle, you enter these low estrogen states and it doesn't feel good to be down there. You know, it's not a good place to be. And I don't think it's healthy. And so there has to be, you know, we can use herbs, we can use foods, we can use hormone replacement therapy. And I think there's a variety of options for us, which is the great thing about being alive today.
Yeah, the options are many. I agree with that too. Like, there's no one solution per patient. If you're looking into the general side of things, I guess it comes to the practitioner's kind of cautious level navigating through that data, because we
Yeah.
don't have data that says, hey, you can take bioidentical hormones for 20 years and you're not increasing any risks. And specifically, we don't have data that is focused on A or B option. Like with bioidenticals, there is no incentive for any group to do actually research and this type of longitudinal research, like, because there's no patent with them. It's a bioidentical. With non-bioidentical and the pharmaceuticals where the research has been done, you were mentioning with the progestin, there is some level of risk. Does that risk translate to the bioidenticals? I don't know. The data is not clear. So my 2 cents for my patients on bioidenticals in terms of long-term, I say, you know, use it for sure as a transitional stage. Because like you said, like people live up to 100 and they're not on bioidentical. They're using diet, lifestyle, sleep, regenerative kind of breathing, and exercise and movement and community contact, right? With other individuals. That definitely is going to boost your testosterone levels. So as a transitional, I think it's really important. I think with the bioidentical in women, again, the testosterone gets missed. You know, you get a prescription for estrogen if your doctor is a little bit more investigative and does a deep test into, like, let's say a Dutch test, and they can figure out of the estrogen metabolites, what do you have? Do you need E3, E2, and E1? Like, what ratios? And then they prescribe that. They even look at the progesterone and prescribe that. But when it comes to testosterone, it's very rarely have I seen a woman on a bioidentical protocol that has testosterone added to it. And that's really the missing link, because that little bit of testosterone is going to regulate your circadian rhythm and the impact on your temperature regulation, which is one of the main things post hysterectomy.
I guess that makes a case with supplementing with pine pollen, maybe in addition to, you know, the hormone replacement as well, to maybe get your maximum benefits from, you know, the hormone replacement as well. What would you suggest, maybe, you know, Breanna and Saeid, as a way to transition off those bioidenticals and maybe go into more herbal supplements like pine pollen and some of the other additional supplements or herbals that Breanna was mentioning before? Like, how would you recommend that transitional period? And I understand that you guys are obviously, as you mentioned before, you can't take this advice. You're not as a client-patient relationship because you guys haven't formulated that yet. But I mean, is there any suggestions or advice, maybe taking first steps towards that progression of getting off those bioidenticals and maybe moving more to a herbal supplement or a diet, or maybe even routines that you guys would suggest as a routine, whether it's exercise and whatnot, to help, you know, with that transitioning period, to stay healthy without the natural production of the estrogens in your body that are coming from your ovaries?
Yeah, I would maximize adrenal adaptogens to increase DHEA hormone. So I really like eleuthero for that. I think maca root has a really beneficial profile in increasing thyroid hormone and adrenal hormones. So, and testosterone, DHEA, all of those pieces. So DHEA would be really important to emphasize. And then the phytoestrogenic foods, legumes, sprouts, and any sort of botanical like dong quai or what is that other one that is, those names,
Damiana?
Hmm?
Is it with a Damiana?
Damiana, yeah, I like Damiana too. What's the really famous one for that's a Western herb?
Tribulus?
Black cohosh.
Black cohosh. Yeah.
Yeah, I would do black cohosh. It's anti-inflammatory also, so good for joints and those pieces. And it is a phytoestrogen, and there are a lot of good formulas out there too for that one. Soy, genistein, those are beneficial. Green tea, flax seeds, ground flax seeds are amazing for hormone support. And with estrogen, typically you're putting it on your wrists or somewhere and you're rubbing it in for 30 seconds to get it in. And so you can decrease the time that you're massaging it in. So 20 seconds, 15 seconds, and you'll get less into circulation by reducing the time of application. And that would be a way to slowly reduce the level instead of just going off of it. Sometimes it's hard to adjust the dose unless someone's someone's helping you to facilitate that.
Yeah, that's the gradual thing. Like if you're planning to go off bioidenticals or BH hormone therapy, the gradual is the key word. Like you wanna wean yourself off slowly, and taking the botanicals along with is important. One of the things to think about is this is turning it back to the liver component and your liver as the organ of detoxification for your hormones. The amount that you're taking into your system as a bioidentical, it's ultimately being processed by your liver and being put out by your system. It's getting a lot of the herbs that help you with liver detoxification. The way to think about that estrogen or that bioidentical, those hormones are having an impact on your liver as well as any other tissue, promoting activity of the liver cells. So some of the basic detox herbs that help with liver function are key things. And sprouts, in what you said, stands out to me as one of the key factors in there, because sprouts also have phytoandrogens. Pretty much all the sprouts that you have. So if you think about like broccoli sprouts, that's one of the main liver supplement ingredient nowadays because it supports liver detoxification. It has those phytoandrogenic activities. All to say that bioidenticals very useful as prescription during transitional times. The jury's out on how safe are they over periods of like, let's say 5, 7, 10 years. And the alternatives are there as well to help you wean off it over time. But knowing which specific herb to use, same as Dr. Breanna, I use the Dutch test to figure out, okay, where is my patient at? And how do we get them off? Like, what is the cluster of symptoms? Is the prescription you're taking good for the symptoms you're having? And do your metabolites support a balance between your male, female, and adrenal component? And if so, then how do we go to get you out? The first step is to get to a place where you're feeling good, you're sleeping well, you're mobile, and you're good in your body. And then the next step is weaning off. And I'll throw one more herb in there, which is my favorite for balancing testosterone and for everyone. I think everyone and anyone should be on this herb, and it's saffron. I think that's it picks up your mood. It's saffron. It boosts your serotonin levels. It works on your cannabinoid system to makes you happier. If you overdose on it, you will be laughing for like a few minutes nonstop, and that's the worst thing that can happen on it. But saffron and pine pollen are my main two, and maca. But saffron and pine pollen are main two goes every morning when I make a cup of tea, because the antioxidant levels in saffron tops any other antioxidant out there. In terms of its anti-inflammatory effect, with curcumin comparisons, the little bit of saffron goes a long way compared to curcumin, the amount that you need to consume. But needless to say, it is an expensive herb. But that's my 2 cents on testosterone, other than pine pollen.
Come on. I don't want to drag on this conversation too long, but Saeid, I mean, do you mind touching base a little bit on that question on glycerin and the tinctures as well, and what your thoughts are opposed to alcohol? I know we do get some comments sometimes that, you know, our tinctures are strong, you know, with the alcohol and whatnot. It would be good to get your perspective on this as well, to be honest.
Yeah. Quickly, you know, it's just being conscious of time too, everyone's time. Quickly, I'll touch on that. Maybe that would be our last point for today, and then we can pick up the conversation next week on the next session. So glycerin and alcohol, there are two. They have cons and pros. Our tinctures, as an alcohol-based tincture, we've formulated in a way that we take an alcoholic extract, separate that, and then run the pollen on a hot glycerin extract, and combine the last two things together. So that gives us the entire profile, because pollen has things that are more soluble in alcohol, and then it has things that are more soluble in glycerin. But having said that, we recognize that this process has one ultimate, you know, kind of gap in there, and that's the alcohol taste that is in the tincture. That is possibly the main criticism that's made of all alcohol tinctures. They have alcohol in them. So, but you don't lose a whole lot in the glycerin extract, especially if the process is started as an alcohol extract and then the alcohol was removed, and then what you end up with is a glycerin. But if you start with glycerin as an extraction point for pine pollen, you're going to miss out on a lot of other substances, because especially with uncracked pine pollen, which is our pine pollen, you need the alcohol as an initial step. But we do have planned to come up with a glycerin extract. That's our next thing, because we have had requests on this, right? We have from the get-go, we've had, you know, can you offer a non-alcoholic version? Our current response for that is put it in like 170 degree, like almost boiling water, but like, or boiled water that's been a little bit cooled down. So put it in there and the alcohol will evaporate and you can take it. But in the future, we will come up with a glycerin extract.
But there's something to be said too, right? For the alcohol extraction, I mean, and having it in the content of alcohol it does have is for it's shelf stable, right? Like number one, and number two, it is a very effective way to get it into your bloodstream. Like I would argue that it's probably more effective going through your sublingually with alcohol than it would be glycerin.
Yes, it would be. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
I think the best suggestion that Burgess gave me to help with the taste of the pine pollen was to swish it around in my mouth before I swallowed it, rather than just drop it in, and because it's like an explosion of alcohol when I just dropped it in. Whereas when I did,
for sure, it is a bit on the strong side.
But that helped. That helped a lot. Pushed it around.
Yeah, and you get used to it as you consume it. You get familiar with it. I find though, but you got to think about it, like the vapors of the alcohol are going to be actually have a lot of those sensitive compounds inside of it too. So if you can have it touch the surface of your mouth and hit most of those mucous membranes, you're going to get a lot of absorption that way, right? Like you're going to get it in there. Once you feel like, okay, this is a point where I've left it in for a little bit, it's not comfortable anymore, or you get to the point where you're like, well, doesn't have that strong kick anymore, then I feel like it's a good opportunity to swallow it down or whatnot. But I think it just becomes just getting familiar with it. It does.
I typically use my tinctures and my teas, right? Like now that we have the mushroom tinctures, I just put them in hot water. For me, I don't like, too much alcohol. And if I'm taking 4 mushroom tinctures and I'm taking the pine pollen on top of that, and I got my tribulus tincture, it becomes too much alcohol. Like 3 mils of 5 tinctures, that's 15 mils of 100% alcohol. That's a, you know, that's an alcoholic
It's a good
definition.
start to the day.
You know, that's 3 shots right there, right? Or
Yeah.
a shot right there. So I always put it in my tea. That's my that's how I do it. I put it in hot water and you stir it. And alcohol's got a, what is it, 65-degree boiling evaporation point. So as soon as it that's Celsius. So as soon as it hits water, it's hot water. It's out. It's gone. So, or at least it's like mostly gone. But then the trick with that is take it on an empty stomach, because like you were saying, how much of it is touching your mucous membrane, and your mucous membrane starts in your mouth and goes all the way to, you know, your small intestine and whatnot, right? So if you're taking it with a lot of food, the absorption is going to be down. Having said that, you know, there's always, like, our physiology prof was awesome. It's like, except, you know, there's always exceptions, and the exception would be if that tincture is bothering your stomach, which swashing it in your mouth and taking it is the way to go. I think we've gone quite a bit over time today, huh?
Yeah. I'll just add one more comment, Jody. And I love the pollen. Like, I take the raw pollen myself. I mean, obviously we got the luxury, like I get access to maybe the stuff that we're not going to use for packaging that might not be 100% food grade anymore because it goes on the table and whatnot. So we have the opportunity to consume a lot of that. But I definitely notice a huge energy increase, and I know it works. Like, the powder itself, putting it in my smoothies in the morning, I do notice when I'm taking it. So,
What's
yeah,
the
it's
difference
getting
in
into your
the lodge-
body. What's that?
What's the difference in the lodgepole?
It's
was
just
gonna-
2 different species of trees. So we like to keep them separated because they are different. And if you look at it from an energetic standpoint, there is a difference. So some people resonate with one more than the other. We like to give people the options to choose which one they like. And also, I like the idea that if you're taking a supplement over a long period of time, it's nice to have the opportunity to kind of subtly change it. So, you know, you lose the potency of the product if you're consuming it over a long period of time. So by adding the pollen, the Lodgepole pollen over a period of time, and then switching to the Ponderosa, it gives your body a break from one to the other. So I think it proves the efficiency of the product over a long period of time to be able to switch between the two. So the Ponderosa has a higher androgen content, but there's some antioxidants in the Lodgepole that are higher. And we've had weird cases where people come back to us and say, I've taken the Lodgepole, and for some reason I feel like my free testosterone is a lot higher in certain men that do it. And then we have other people that swear by the Ponderosa. So we do white label for a company called Ascent, and they're based out of the States there. And we add both products together for them, and it's a combination of the two. So yeah.
I just wanted to quickly mention that we do have a YouTube channel, and I shared this in the link. Just going to share my screen. You can see when you go to the link that I sent, there's a specific playlist focused on women and pine pollen. It does go over Ponderosa versus Lodgepole, how it supports women's health, how to use the tincture, how it supports thinning hair. Burgess and Saeid have done a great job on their YouTube channel, and there's hundreds of, or maybe not hundreds.
Not hundreds.
A lot of,
Yeah.
we're working on the
What's
hundreds.
Maria, what's the topic for the next community meeting?
So we are not having a open community meeting next week. It's actually a invite only on a special secret project. So if you don't have that invite yet, I will be sending out a newsletter with, in 2 weeks, we will have another topic, and we are looking for a guest speaker and a topic. So it might be on the athletic performance enhancement that pine pollen. And then also Caroline last time had asked for how does pine pollen support gut health? So we want to have a topic that's really, like, gut health is really important. And as we're making New Year's resolutions, I think all of this is applicable. So we could spend hours talking about pine pollen, but please explore our YouTube channel. You can learn more about our sustainable harvesting practices. And please, I'll stay on the call if anyone wants to have any other questions answered, or reach out on social media, and I'd be happy to support you. So Dr. Breanna had to take off. I'm sure
Yeah,
she
maybe
has
we'll
children.
reach out to her and thank her for
Yeah.
being with us. Yeah.
I private
And we-
messaged her just saying, sorry, we've gone over, and wanted to be respectful of everyone's time, but this is recorded, so I'll be sending it out to anyone who had to leave early. So thank you to everyone who showed up. We love this community. We love sharing our passion for pollen and supporting everyone on their health journey. So
Thanks, Jody. Thanks, Mary. Thanks, Caroline, for sticking out to the end. And yeah, I really appreciate it, Jody. Thanks for coming out. And I know you had a lot of questions, so thanks for being patient and being part of the call. I really feel like you got, the best answer possible. So, and yeah, if you got more questions or you want to follow up with Saeid on more things, by all means, I'm sure he can reach out to you and set up an appointment or something like that if that interests you. But yeah, let me know. You can give me a call anytime if you got any more questions and whatnot.
yeah, and feel free to unmute yourself if you have questions. It's now open.
Yeah, I'm in no rush too. I can stick around for a bit, so I'm open to talk to anybody.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Saeid, for taking time to be on the call too. I know you're busy and you can't always make it. It's always great to have you here.
Yeah, thanks so much for arranging it and getting it
Yeah.
written with them.
Have to coordinate so many people.
Yeah.
I just want to quickly give some feedback. So I'm also in the health industry, and I was next to Burgess at a trade show. And so he gave me some to try, and I'm just starting into perimenopause. I'm 55, and I was getting the most brutal hot flashes, like just brutal. And since I've been taking it morning and night, I have not been getting the hot flashes. I get maybe 1 a day instead of 15 a day. And it's just some days I don't get any at all. And so, I mean, I do Vitex as well. So there's other things I'm doing, but that was the biggest change that I made. So I just want to give you that feedback. I'm sure that had a lot to do with it. So thanks, Burgess.
Wow, thanks, Caroline. That's great.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
had no idea it was such a positive response. We hear that a lot. Well, Saeid would be able to comment on that more than I would, but I do hear.
Yeah,
that.
that's definitely awesome that thanks so much for sharing the feedback. And it sometimes comes to stacking that thing, right? Like that one last thing that you add to your healthcare that just, that pushes you above that catalytic level of being able to respond. But menopause and hot flashes and pine pollen, that's by far, like talking about gut health, we got approached by Boucher, just got an email from them. They were interested to do some research with pine pollen for Crohn's and colitis. That's where their budget is at. We reached out to them initially saying, let's do a study with menopause. Because doing a study takes quite a bit of resources. And they said Health Canada doesn't have any programs that supports menopause research with natural products right now. But we have a Crohn's study. Do you want to engage in that? But I think it really shines in hot flashes in women's health area. But so thanks so much for that feedback.
No worries.
I'll just share quickly that I was really surprised when I started working with Canadian pine pollen to hear how many women were having such positive impacts, because I thought it was really a product for males when I heard that it was testosterone. So that's why I was excited to have this conversation, because I didn't know how important testosterone is for women. And just hearing the stories and realizing that most of the customers I was engaging in conversations were going through menopause and had such powerful stories, and they're so loyal in taking and ordering Canadian pine pollen. So it's fun to share how beneficial it is. And one of the more recent stories is one of our clients, they have probably digestion issues or it was constipation, and she's had it for years. When she started taking the tincture, she started being regular. And then she went on a work trip to a Christmas party and she didn't have her tincture for 3 days. And then the constipation came back, and she was so excited to start taking it again. She's like, it really works. And I'm getting my friends who have the same problem to take it. So there's so many different stories that I get to hear.
So many different cases of different little health issues that, for some reason they become resolved, you know, I think it's just, you know, there's certain things that we eat that we're lacking from our diet, and it doesn't necessarily have to be pine pollen, but it could be a different nutritional source that we're lacking, and we're getting it into our bodies, and it's helping us function as we should. So it's just I think a lot of it is deficiencies.
I think I just take the pine pollen tincture in the morning, and I just started, Jody told me about swishing around. I used to just put it underneath my tongue. Tastes terrible. But it's getting better. And then I also have the pollen I put in my smoothies. I've been kind of doing that, not very often. But anyway, I just got off bioidenticals and I missed my sleep. It was so nice that put me to sleep. And so I'm not sleeping as well, but maybe I should try it at night also.
Yeah.
And then I wake up, I'm just hot. Not the hot flashes I had before, but Caroline, you said, you know, taking it twice. I think I took it once at night and I thought maybe that kept me awake, but that might've been a fluke. So I guess I'll try, you know, taking it at night or taking more and swishing around longer in my mouth. And instead of chasing with water, maybe I'll let it go down. So anyway, I'll try it. But like I said, I'm trying to get off the bioidenticals also, just like Jody. So her and I have talked quite a bit.
Yeah, try it before bed. I know I have no problem taking it. I also feel like caffeine isn't too much of a stimulant for me as well. So I feel like I'm lucky that way. I have no problem sleeping. But I know, like, for example, I've had people before saying if they take it too close to bedtime, that it is a little bit too much of a stimulant. So I like to take it before bed because I feel like your body's in the state of repair as you sleep. So I think, you know, giving your body any type of nutrition before you go to sleep, like in small amounts like that, I always think it's like a great way to have your body heal overnight. So I think it's definitely worth a try for sure. And if the pine pollen tincture is too stimulating, you know, maybe the powder would be a better option to try as well before bed. Yeah.
I take mine with, I take magnesium with ashwagandha and B vitamins as well. There's a supplement that has all of it in it. So I take that at night too. And it relaxes me and I find that I'm getting better sleeps. It was kind of figuring out what worked for me. And those are the things that worked for me.
Yeah. Magnesium is really good before bed, isn't it? Yeah.
That's one of the things we didn't talk about in terms of like menopause, hormone regulation, and sleep. It's oftentimes, you know, we talked about sleep and its importance in regulating hormones, but it's a cycle. So sometimes low sleep causes the lack of hormones, and other times the low hormones circle back and disrupt your circadian rhythm and you can't fall asleep. Mary, if you know, that's one of the things, like if you find this comes back to like, did you step down your bioidenticals? And if you went out quickly, possibly you didn't give your body enough time to adjust. With pine pollen, we got such a big dose. In Canada, we say 2 to 4 mils, 2 to 3 times a day, right? So that's a huge range of dosing. So you can play around to see what works for you. If you find tincture too stimulating at nighttime, maybe doing powder at nighttime is a better solution. With botanicals, there is a little bit of, it goes back to that energetics of it, like finding what is like being present with your body and your nervous system and finding what is your best personal solution and approach, but giving yourself the freedom to play around because they can be quite forgiving. You know, it's tough to cause harm with them. Your body will say, hey, don't do this, and you will learn from it as long as you're watching what's happening. I have to go. It's been a great meeting. Great seeing you all here. Thanks so much for sticking around. I know this is going back to that lifestyle situation of like you're sitting for an hour and a half on our chairs, so you got to get up and move around. Get that blood pumping, get that testosterone going.
Thanks for taking the time.
Thanks,
Yeah.
everyone.
Thanks, Jody.
Thank you.
Good seeing you, Caroline.
Good seeing you
Thanks,
too.
Maria.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye.
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 Bye.